These are days when we really struggle to be our authentic self. What does it mean for me to be playing out my real self? And there is the crash of breaking waves around me, and there is just such a surge of all kinds of emotions that come and go, within me and people around me. And it reminds me of a story of Nelson Mandela. This story is related by Richard Stengel, who was the editor of Time magazine at that time, and he had collaborated with Nelson Mandela in the writing of Mandela's book, his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. And Stengel observes the following. He says that there's one time we were in an aircraft and it was encountering a lot of turbulence, just like we are today, isn't it? And he said, in that shaking and rattling of the aircraft, I and a couple of these other people in that plane, the small little aircraft, were struck by fear. And we were just feeling, a great amount of just anxiety about what will happen next and will we actually crash and die? And he said in that moment, Mandela was like this center of just calmness and just complete peace of mind. And he was reading a newspaper. And I was just so impressed with his capacity in that moment to be so serene. And he said, and then the plane lands and we get out of the plane and I walk into the black limousine with him, with the president, and the other two folks walk into another car. And he says, at that point, Mandela looks at me and he heaves a sigh of relief and he says, my God, that was scary. And I looked at him and I said, but Mr. President, you were not scared at all. I and the other two people were scared, but not you. And now you're telling me like it was scary? And he looked at me and said, you bet I was scared. But there was no way I was going to show it there, because that's what the people expect from me. They were looking at me as a pillar and a source of strength. And I want to offer up that story because do you think Mandela in that moment would have been more true to himself if he just acted out that impulsive surge of emotion, of fear that he was feeling? Or was he more true to himself by actually recognizing in that moment that, okay, let me hold on to that awareness that I'm feeling this way from within, but let me ask myself, what's the way I need to show up in this room right now? What is my duty and my responsibility right now? And if my responsibility is to bring out the best in myself and the best in everybody in this moment, and if that means I have to choose to distance myself from this emotion, perhaps create another outlet for it later when I'm in that limo, in the privacy, in my conversation with Richard Stengel, well then maybe in this moment I will do so. I will put that little bit of space between my impulse and my action, and I will act with intention because that is my true self.